The city, a sprawling beast of glass and steel, exhales its final shuddering breath of the day, leaving you in its quiet aftermath. You stand amidst the hushed expanse of a midnight trading floor with dead screens, a mausoleum of ambition. The air here is thin, tasting of stale coffee and forgotten fortunes. Rows of monitors, once vibrant with the frantic pulse of global markets, now reflect your own tired face in their obsidian depths. Each screen, a dark mirror, holds a ghost of light, a faint lingering hum of power you feel more than hear. Your reflection, Dean Archer, is a study in fated resolve. Lines etched around your eyes speak of too many nights chasing shadows, too many mornings waking to the bitter tang of regret. The weight of a past disgrace clings to you like the scent of old smoke, a phantom limb forever aching. This office, a borrowed corner in a forgotten building, is your current sanctuary, a purgatory between the life you had and the one you grudgingly endure. A rap, soft yet insistent, echoes through the vast space, pulling you from your reverie. It's too late for clients, too early for peace. You turn, your movements fluid, a relic of the street-trained instincts that still linger. The woman who enters carries herself with an elegant frailty, a silk scarf knotted meticulously at her throat, a stark contrast to the utilitarian grimness of your surroundings. Her expensive coat, tailored to perfection, seems out of place here, a beacon of a world you've left behind. He speaks, his voice a low, urgent murmur, a melody of suppressed panic. "You are Dean Archer," he states, not a question, but an affirmation, as if he has already sifted through countless failures to arrive at yours. They say you find what others cannot, or what others won't. You offer no immediate reply, merely a slow, assessing gaze. Her presence here, in this hour, in this forgotten corner, speaks volumes. Desperation, raw and unvarnished, hangs about her like a heavy perfume. "My son is gone," she continues, her words now a torrent, each one a sharp stone tumbling from her lips. "He vanished 3 days ago. The authorities, they do nothing. They say he's an adult, that he probably just left." A scoff, sharp and disbelieving, escapes her. "My Julian does not simply leave." You gesture to the scarred armchair across your desk, a silent invitation. She moves with a stiff grace, settling into the worn fabric as if it were a velvet throne. Her gloved hands clasp a designer handbag, knuckles white. "Julian Thorne," she pronounces the name, and a faint tremor, almost imperceptible, runs through you. Thorne. The name resonates, a deep, low thrum against the fragile peace you've cultivated. The Thorne family. Power, old money, influence woven into the very fabric of the city's upper crust. Focused. He wouldn't just disappear, not without a word, not without a reason. You lean back, the springs of your chair groaning in protest. "What did the police say, exactly?" You ask, your voice raspy from disuse, a deliberate monotone. "They took a report, asked questions, said they'd look into it." But I see the look in their eyes, Mr. Archer. The same look I saw when my brother went missing years ago. They think he's run off, or worse, that he's involved in something unsavory. Her eyes finally meet yours, brimming with a fierce maternal anguish. "My son is a good boy. He's never been in trouble. He works hard. He was interning at the city's economic development office even. He has a future." You register the detail. City's economic development office. A connection, however tenuous, to the city's power structures. The same structures that had chewed you up and spat you out. A faint, almost imperceptible clenching in your gut begins. Peculiar things. A few weeks ago, he was agitated, distracted. He spoke of seeing patterns and unraveling threads. He said he was close to something big, something dangerous. She pauses, her eyes darting to the silent screens around you, as if the walls themselves might be listening. He was afraid, Mr. Truly afraid. The word hangs in the air, heavy and palpable. Fear. It's a language you understand intimately. This case, presented as a simple missing person, has just grown teeth. Julian Thorne. Prominent family. It all feels too familiar. A ghost from your own buried past beginning to stir. Do you have anything concrete? You ask, pushing past the prickle of old memories. Any notes? Any messages? Anything at all that might shed light on what he was close to? She hesitates, her gaze flickering away, a subtle shift in her posture that speaks of withheld information. Only vague things. He was secretive, as young men can be, but he mentioned a specific place once. A place where the real business happened, away from prying eyes. Her voice drops again, barely audible. He called it the vault. The vault, a new thread, a potential clue perhaps, or merely a desperate mother grasping at straws. Yet the word itself holds a certain weight, a metallic resonance that suggests hidden things, protected secrets. You feel the tug of the familiar current, the undertow of a world you swore you'd left behind. This isn't just about finding a missing young man. It's about peeling back layers, exposing what lies beneath. And a part of you, the part you thought was long dead, feels a reluctant, dangerous flicker of life. The game, it seems, has found you once more. The metallic tang of the word vault still lingered, a ghost on your tongue from the mother's whispered plea. It was a thread, thin and shimmering, in the otherwise tightly woven fabric of official silence. You sat, not at your usual cluttered desk, but in the sterile quiet of the precinct's public records room, the air thick with the scent of old paper and forgotten aspirations. Before you, the file on the missing scion, a man named Liam, lay open, its pages crisp, almost too clean. The official narrative, penned by the lead investigator, painted a picture of a routine disappearance, a wealthy young man prone to wanderlust. But your eyes, honed by years of sifting through deception, caught the faint tremor in the fabric. A timestamp on a security log, indicating Liam left his family estate at precisely 02:17, clashed with a casual mention by the gate attendant of seeing his car depart closer to 03:00, a detail buried deep in an ancillary report. The discrepancy was minute, a pinprick, but it bled suspicion into the pristine pages. Liam, your report states a departure at 02:17. The gate attendant's log suggests closer to 03:00. Care to reconcile that hour, detective? He leaned back, a deliberate slowness in his movements, his eyes narrowing. A clerical error. The attendant was tired. No foul play indicated. No ransom demands. Just a man who decided to disappear. His words were clipped, precise, a shield against further inquiry. You saw the subtle flicker in his eyes, a momentary waver that spoke not of weariness, but of something carefully concealed. He mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that Liam had recently been obsessed with securing his digital footprint, a detail he dismissed as typical paranoia of the wealthy. The dismissal resonated, a jarring chord. Digital footprint. The word vault returned, not as a physical strongbox, but as an invisible container, a fortress of data. Liam, the missing man, had been building a digital vault. You left the lead investigator with a polite nod, the unspoken challenge hanging heavy in the air. The official narrative was a neatly wrapped package, but you had found a loose string. Your investigation led you down a labyrinth of financial records, encrypted messaging services, and obscure data storage providers. Liam, it seemed, wasn't just wealthy. He was discreetly investing in a peculiar sector: secure, offshore data warehousing. One name surfaced repeatedly, etched into the margins of shell corporations and digital ledgers: Viridian Nexus. Their public face was polished, but beneath, a complex web of holdings suggested an empire built on information, on secrets. The air tasted of exhaust fumes and damp concrete. You bypassed the main entrance, finding a service access point around the back, an old loading dock gate that yielded to a practiced hand and a slim gym. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the ghosts of commerce. A long, dim corridor, lined with abandoned office cubicles, led you deeper into the building's heart. It was a cavernous space, silent and vast, bathed in the sickly green glow of emergency exit signs. Cables snaked across the floor, a forgotten nervous system. The silence was profound, broken only by the faint hum of distant ventilation. This wasn't just abandoned. It felt interrupted, like a scene frozen mid-action. Dust motes danced in the slivers of moonlight piercing the grimy windows, illuminating the forgotten keyboards, the scattered coffee cups. You moved methodically, your footsteps echoing. You scanned the desks, the walls, the empty chairs. A specific terminal, tucked away in a corner, caught your eye. Unlike the others, its screen wasn't entirely black. Kneeling, you examined the unit. It wasn't the terminal itself, but a small, sleek device plugged into a hidden USB port on the underside of the desk. A data chip, no larger than your thumb, encased in brushed steel. It hummed faintly, a tiny engine of information. This was no ordinary storage device. Its design, its secure housing, screamed corporate espionage, or something far more clandestine. You carefully extracted the chip. Its surface was cool beneath your fingers. This was it, the anomaly. The first true deviation from the official story. This wasn't about a wealthy wanderer. This was about secrets, about a powerful entity named Viridian Nexus, and a missing man who had stumbled upon their hidden vault. The tension coiled in your gut, a familiar companion. The detective's words, sharp as flint, had sought to carve a barrier between you and the truth. The case is closed on our end, Dean. No foul play indicated. No ransom demands. Just a man who decided to disappear. The dismissal hung in the air, a stale perfume of official apathy. But you had seen the tremor, the fleeting shadow in his eyes, a ripple beneath the placid surface of his composure. That flicker was enough. It was always enough. The city exhaled a damp, cool breath as you stepped back onto its veins of concrete. A place where fortunes were spun and unspun long after the market bells had ceased their clamor. The building was a monolith of ambition, its upper floors ablaze with a skeletal grid of light, but here, in this specific chamber, a profound quiet reigned. But you knew the service entrance, a discreet passage around the back, usually manned by a single bored security guard. Row upon row of trading desks stretched into the gloom, each station a silent altar to forgotten transactions. A sprawling, desolate landscape of dormant power. Your footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoed in the vast emptiness, a stark counterpoint to the city's distant hum. You moved through the aisles, your gaze sweeping over the deserted terminals, searching for any anomaly, a misplaced item, a sign of recent presence. The missing scion was meticulous, known for his fastidious habits. Yet rumor held he kept an illicit late-night office here, a private sanctum for dealings beyond the purview of daylight. Then, tucked beneath a stack of old, yellowed financial reports on a back corner desk, you spotted it. A small, intricately folded piece of paper. A peculiar shade of off-white, not standard office stock. You unfolded it carefully. It wasn't a note, nor a simple ledger entry. It was a fragment of a bond certificate, an obscure, pre-modern financial instrument, almost a relic. Your fingers traced the delicate filigree, the arcane script of a long-defunct holding company. The Lyra Trust. The air grew thin, the vast room spinning for a dizzying moment. Lyra Trust. The words were a brand, seared into your memory, linked to the very case that had shattered your career, the one that still haunted your sleepless nights. The same complex web of shell corporations, the same archaic financial instruments, the same untouchable names, the same feeling of being on the precipice of something vast and terrible. This wasn't just a clue. It was a ghost, reaching from your past, pulling you back into the labyrinth you thought you had escaped. A faint scuff of shoes against the distant marble floor made you stiffen, the paper still clutched in your hand. You spun, your eyes piercing the gloom. It was the cleaner, a woman with tired eyes and a scarf wrapped tightly around her head, obscuring most of her face. She paused, her gaze meeting yours across the expanse of dead screens. Lost something? Her voice was a low murmur, surprisingly clear in the echoing space. You tightened your grip on the paper, tucking it into your pocket. Just looking for someone. The man who used this desk. She took a slow step forward, then another, the cart rolling silently. He doesn't come here anymore, not since. It was not a question, but a pronouncement. She offered no direct answer. Instead, she reached into the cart, her hand emerging with a small folded piece of silver foil. She unfolded it, revealing a single, pristine white rose petal, impossibly delicate, almost luminous in the dim light. Her eyes held a deep, knowing sorrow, a silent plea. You didn't take the petal. You didn't need to. The missing scion was not just missing. He was a withered flower. And you, Dean, were treading on dangerous ground. The Lyra Trust, the white rose petal, a ghost from your past, a warning in the present. Your determination, though now laced with a profound unease, hardened further. You wouldn't back off, not now, not ever. The silent accusation of the petal lingered, a phantom weight in your palm, though you had never touched it. Her eyes, the grieving mother's, had burned with a truth too vast for words. A silent plea that echoed in the cavernous room. The missing scion was not just gone. He was a sacrifice. A pawn offered on a chessboard you were only beginning to perceive. You turned from her, the image of the wilting bloom etched behind your eyelids. A rose, specifically. Not just any rose, but one with a particular hue, a shade of crimson, almost black, known for its resilience in harsh climates. A detail you filed away, a whisper of a clue. The family's official story, a simple disappearance, now felt like a veil woven from spider silk, fragile and deceptive. The city outside was a restless beast, its breath fogging the night air as you moved through its arteries. Your office, a sanctuary of dust and forgotten cases, called to you. There, amidst the stacked files and the scent of stale coffee, you began to pull at the threads. You started with the scion's digital footprint, not the public one, but the ghost in the machine, the fragments left behind. His social circles, previously dismissed as the idle rich, now seemed less frivolous, more interconnected. A web began to form, subtle and insidious. You found mentions of a clandestine club, an exclusive society known only by a cryptic emblem. A stylized dark rose. The same rose. Your fingers, calloused from years of gripping a service weapon and now a pen, danced across the keyboard. This wasn't some collegiate fraternity. The names associated with it were not those of young heirs sowing wild oats. They were established figures. A city council member, a prominent developer, a judge known for his unblemished record. Young women, a journalist, a whistleblower, all vanished without a trace, their cases eventually buried under bureaucratic indifference. He was either an unwitting casualty caught in the crosshairs, or, more disturbingly, an active participant who had suddenly become inconvenient. Hours bled into dawn, the city's hum growing louder as it awoke. You hadn't heard the door open, hadn't registered a presence until a voice, raspy like dry leaves skittering across pavement. cut through the quiet. Still chasing ghosts, Dean? You didn't flinch, your hand instinctively reaching for the worn grip of the pistol tucked beneath your desk. A habit from a life you tried to forget. The figure stepped further into the weak light filtering through your grimy window. His face was a roadmap of forgotten battles, his eyes sharp and knowing. "Some ghosts leave petals," you replied, your voice a low growl, your gaze unwavering. He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "And some petals lead to graves. Big graves, Dean, deeper than you remember." He paused, letting the words hang in the air, thick with unspoken meaning. The missing scion. He wasn't just playing with fire. He was stoking the furnace. He was found something he shouldn't have, or saw something he couldn't unsee. What did he find? You pushed, your determination hardening. Who? Or, more accurately, how many? This isn't a small-time operation, Dean. This is a root system, running under the whole damn city. He placed it gently on your desk, near your hand, but didn't release it immediately. Your eyes scanned the headline. Prominent architect vanishes. The date was years ago, one of the cases that had haunted your tenure. Below it, a faded photograph. He was looking for connections, for patterns. He found them. And now he's part of the pattern. His grip loosened, and the clipping lay before you, a tangible link to a past you couldn't escape. Be careful, Dean. The game had just begun, and you were now, undeniably, a player. The city, a sprawling beast of glass and steel, exhaled a chill breath as you navigated its skeletal arteries. The spectral silhouette of the stranger, dissolving into the night, had etched itself onto your mind, a cold brand of certainty. You were no longer just searching for a ghost. You were hunting the puppeteers. Dean Archer, the name you carried, felt less like a burden and more like a weapon again. You found yourself at the periphery of the structure, its obsidian facade reflecting the fractured city lights like a broken mirror. The building, a monument to avarice, seemed to hold its breath. A service entrance, discreetly tucked away, offered a passage. The lock, a minor challenge for your practiced fingers, yielded with a soft click, a sigh in the dead quiet. You moved with the quiet grace of a predator, your footsteps absorbed by the plush, anachronistic carpet of the executive hallways. The silence was profound, broken only by the distant hum of unseen ventilation and the frantic beat of your own pulse. A primal drum in the stillness. The ergonomic chairs sat empty, a silent congregation awaiting a resurrection that would never come. The scent of ozone lingered, a phantom echo of countless hours of intense, high-stakes transactions. Your eyes scanned the vacant desks, searching for a terminal, any terminal that might still hold a flicker of life. A back door left ajar. Most were locked down, their neural pathways severed. A stroke of luck, or perhaps a deliberate oversight. The system, old and unpatched, creaked open like a rusted gate. You bypassed the basic security, delving deeper, navigating the labyrinthine directories. The conglomerate's internal network was a sprawling beast, its tendrils reaching into every conceivable venture. You knew what you were looking for. Anomalies, discrepancies, any unusual transactions tied to the missing scion, or to the shell corporations you had uncovered in the earlier stages of your investigation. Hours bled into minutes as you burrowed through layers of encrypted data, a digital archaeologist sifting through strata of corporate deceit. Your eyes ached, tracing lines of code, parsing financial ledgers, cross-referencing names and dates. Then, a flicker. A series of transfers, small at first, then escalating, funneled through a series of offshore accounts. But it was the last transfer that froze your breath. A substantial sum, routed directly from the missing scion's private trust, just days before his disappearance. And the recipient? Not a person, but an encrypted data packet, its destination a secure server located within a remote, unmarked warehouse, one of the very facilities linked to the powerful conglomerate and whispered to be a black site for illicit operations. This was it. Concrete evidence. The data packet, you realized, likely contained something damning, something the Scion was trying to move, or perhaps was forced to move. A low thrum vibrated through the floorboards, subtle at first, then growing, a rhythmic pulse that was not part of the building's usual machinery. You felt it in your teeth. A warning. The hairs on your neck prickled. You were not alone. You yanked a small, encrypted drive from your pocket, a digital ghost, and began the rapid transfer of the critical data. The thrum intensified, closer now, accompanied by the distinct, heavy tread of multiple footsteps. They were not trying to be quiet anymore. They knew you were here. The data transfer progress bar crawled. Your eyes darted to the entrance of the trading floor. 3 hulking forms, silent and menacing, advancing with a predatory slowness. The transfer completed. You tore the drive free, shoving it deep into your inner jacket pocket. As you rose, a chair scraped across the polished floor behind you. Too late. A heavy hand clamped down on your shoulder, spinning you around. A blunt force struck your temple, a sudden blinding burst of static behind your eyes. The floor tilted, the dead screens blurring into a kaleidoscope of muted reflections. You stumbled back, catching yourself on a desk, the impact rattling your teeth. Before you could fully regain your balance, another blow, a brutal punch to the gut, doubled you over, stealing your breath. The air rushed from your lungs in a ragged gasp. You tasted blood, metallic and hot, on your tongue. The figures closed in, their faces obscured by the dim light, their intent unmistakably violent. This was no mere warning. A desperate surge of adrenaline coursed through your veins. The evidence was yours, but the cost, you realized, might be everything. The spectral stranger, a wisp of smoke in the labyrinthine night, had dissolved, but not without leaving a phantom trace. A whispered address that resonated in your bones. You pushed through an unmarked side door, the heavy steel groaning a protest that echoed in the vast emptiness. Your boots scuffed on the polished concrete, each step a declaration against the profound quiet. The sheer scale of the place was disorienting, a testament to the colossal sums that once danced across these very screens. Now only the ghosts of data flickered in your mind's eye. The stranger's hint had been cryptic, a single number etched onto a discarded matchbook, a workstation number. Your fingers, calloused and knowing, traced the edge of the desk. A subtle distortion in the metallic panel beneath the main console caught your attention. It wasn't a loose screw, but a meticulously disguised seam. Your pocket knife, a familiar weight in your hand, slid into the crevice. With a soft click, a narrow compartment sprang open. A single tarnished silver signet ring, its crest depicting a coiled serpent, lay beside a small, intricately carved wooden bird. The bird was the first thing your eyes snagged on, a jolt of ice through your veins. But the most damning evidence was not the ring or the bird. A small, almost imperceptible stain, the color of dried claret, marred the velvet beneath. You found an ancient, forgotten laptop in a maintenance closet, its battery surprisingly holding a charge. With a practiced hand, you inserted the chip. The screen flickered to life, displaying a single encrypted video file. The decoding was swift, a ghost from your old life. The footage was grainy, shot from a static, high-angle camera. It showed the missing Scion not alive, but slumped in a chair, his face pale, his eyes wide and unseeing. The image flickered, then stabilized, showing the figure pressing the object against the Scion's neck. There was no struggle, only a final, shuddering breath that fogged the air. The missing Scion was not merely missing, he was irrevocably gone. The wooden bird, the raven tattoo, the method of silencing it all converged. This wasn't just a new case. It was the resurgence of your greatest failure, a mocking echo from a past you thought buried. This was about vengeance. The determination, long dormant, now burned with a white-hot intensity. The dead screens around you seemed to hum with a newfound energy, reflecting not your reflection, but the blazing resolve in your eyes. You closed the laptop, the image of the raven seared into your mind. The game had changed. The whispered address, a ghost upon your ear, had drawn you through the city's hushed veins. You moved with the quiet purpose of a predator, or perhaps a ghost yourself, towards the skeletal remains of commerce. Their screens, once vibrant with the frantic pulse of global markets, now reflected only the faint, scattered light from the street lamps outside, casting a metallic sheen across the deserted space. Your footsteps, even in their careful cadence, echoed with an almost sacrilegious loudness. You moved deeper, a solitary figure dwarfed by the silent monuments of failed enterprise. The air was thick with a forgotten energy, a residue of desperation and triumph. This was the meeting place the informant had promised, where the truth, or at least a sliver of it, would finally be laid bare. Hope, a fragile thing, flickered in your chest, warring with the cynicism that had become your second skin. A faint scuff of a shoe broke the monumental quiet. You turned, your hand already drifting to the familiar weight at your hip. It was the contact, the one who had been feeding you breadcrumbs of information, hinting at the rot beneath the city's gleaming surface. He moved with a practiced ease, his face obscured by the lingering gloom, yet his posture radiated a peculiar tension. It carried a strange resonance in the cavernous space. You came. You said it was urgent, you replied, your gaze sweeping the desolate floor, searching for any other presence, any telltale sign of a trap. The space felt too open, too exposed. You have something for me? The informant took another step, his hands rising slightly, palms open in a gesture that might have been appeasement or surrender. I do. More than you could imagine. The web? It's tighter than we thought, Dean. It reaches higher. A knot tightened in your gut. His tone was off, a subtle discord in the symphony of the night. You noticed the way his eyes darted, not to you, but to the periphery. A quick, almost imperceptible flick towards the entrance you'd used. What is it? You pressed, your voice low, edged with suspicion. They're all connected, Dean. A sequence, a pattern of... Your eyes narrowed. Disposals? Yes, he said, and then, his voice hardening, losing its apologetic edge. And you, Dean, are the next. Before the words fully registered, a harsh floodlight snapped on behind him, momentarily blinding you. Not just the conspirators, then. The law. They were here, and they were here for you. It was about bringing you out. You were getting too close. Too inconvenient. The betrayal hit you like a physical blow, a sudden gut-wrenching twist. The air rushed from your lungs. All the breadcrumbs, the veiled warnings, the carefully leaked data, it had all been an elaborate ruse, a carefully constructed path leading you to this very precipice. You were a pawn, played by a master hand. Hold it right there, Archer! A gruff voice boomed from the approaching figures. Hands where I can see them! You didn't hesitate. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a hunt. You spun, diving behind a stack of defunct server racks, the heavy metallic clang echoing through the space. A volley of shouts erupted, followed by the sharp crack of a stun gun discharge, the air sizzling with ozone. The beam struck the rack where you'd been a second ago, sparking against the metal. Move, move. You moved low, your body a coiled spring, weaving between the desks, using the dead screens as temporary shields. Each monitor, a black mirror, flashed brief, distorted reflections of the figures pursuing you. You saw the informant, standing still, watching, a satisfied smirk now etched on his face. He was an observer to your downfall. You burst through a narrow aisle, the scent of dust and stale coffee assaulting your senses. You heard a voice, sharp and commanding, call out, "Check the northern sector. He can't get to the service tunnel." Service tunnel. A new piece of information, dropped carelessly in the heat of the chase. A potential escape route. You changed direction, aiming for the northern wall, your instincts screaming. The floor was slick with condensation, making your footing treacherous. You kicked over a swivel chair, sending it skittering into the path of a pursuer, buying yourself a precious second. The exit was a heavy steel door marked with faded yellow paint. You slammed into it, your shoulder absorbing the impact, the old mechanism groaning as you wrestled with the bar. Shots rang out, splintering the wall beside you, sending plaster dust showering down. You pulled, heaved, and with a final desperate shove, the door gave way, revealing a narrow, unlit corridor. The door clanged shut behind you, momentarily muffling the chaos. You were in a maintenance shaft, the air thick with the smell of damp concrete and forgotten machinery. Your phone, a beacon of your identity, was a liability now. You pulled it from your pocket, the screen a brief, defiant glow in the gloom, and then, with a sharp crack, you smashed it against the concrete wall, silencing its connection to the world. You were off-grid, a ghost among the living, hunted by both the law and the unseen architects of this vast conspiracy. But in that hostile landscape, a new resolve hardened within you. They had forced your hand. The service tunnel's air, thick with the metallic tang of old machinery and the faint, sweet decay of neglected conduits, clung to your clothes, a shroud of grim certainty. The swivel chair, a hollow drum in the echoing expanse, ricocheted from your kick, its plastic wheels shrieking a brief protest before silence reclaimed the space. Your breath tore at your throat, each gasp a ragged saw blade. The chase was a relentless drumbeat in your ears, the heavy thud of the pursuer's boots a counterpoint to your own ragged rhythm. A sudden sharp pain flared in your left calf, a white-hot spear. You stumbled, catching yourself on a cold, greasy pipe, its rust flaking under your grip. A glancing blow, perhaps a ricochet, or a piece of debris from a struggle you hadn't fully registered. You pressed on, the ache a constant companion, a dull roar beneath the adrenaline. Your vision blurred at the edges, the tunnel's dim lights stretching into distorted streaks. Then, a sudden jarring shift. The narrow confines of the service tunnel gave way to a vast, cavernous space. This was not the quiet of neglect, but the profound hush of cessation. The air here was cool, sterile, smelling faintly of ozone and forgotten ambition. Desks, stripped of their frantic occupants, sat like empty husks. Keyboards lay silent, their keys gathering a fine film of dust, monuments to a frantic past. The scale of it was immense, a cathedral of defunct commerce. You limped deeper into the labyrinth of workstations, each step a wince. The wound in your calf a persistent, burning ember. The adrenaline that had propelled you through the tunnels began to recede, leaving behind a profound exhaustion. You slumped into a high-backed chair, its leather cracked and worn, the weight of the moment pressing down. Your chest heaved, a frantic bellows. Or perhaps they had given up, believing you cornered, or worse. Your hand went to your leg, pulling away damp and crimson. You were isolated, wounded, and the truth felt further away than ever. You had promised them justice, and now you were bleeding out on a forgotten trading floor, surrounded by ghosts of ambition. The cynicism, a familiar blanket, threatened to smother the last embers of your resolve. What was the point? The corruption was too deep, the powerful too entrenched. You were just one man, broken and alone, Your gaze drifted over the dead screens, each a black mirror reflecting your own defeat. Then, something flickered. Not a light, not a display, but a subtle distortion in the reflection on a specific monitor, 5 rows ahead, near a pillar. A minute ripple, a suggestion of texture where there should be smooth glass. It was almost imperceptible, a trick of the light, a phantom of your tired eyes. But your investigator's mind, even bruised and battered, refused to let it go. You pushed yourself up, gritting your teeth against the fresh surge of pain, and limped towards it. Closer, you saw it was not a trick of light. Someone had etched something onto the screen's surface, a faint, almost invisible scratch. It wasn't random. You leaned in, your breath fogging the cool glass. The marks formed a sequence, a jagged line, a crescent, a broken circle. It wasn't a language you recognized, but it had a structure, a deliberate pattern. Your fingers traced the cool, etched lines. This wasn't vandalism. This was a message. And then, a profound clarity, sharp and sudden as a shard of ice, pierced through the fog of your despair. A child's scrawl, the detective at the time had concluded. But the pattern, the specific arrangement of the jagged line, the crescent, the broken circle, it was identical. Not a random doodle, not a child's drawing. It was a code, left by a victim, a desperate plea for help, a final act of defiance. And now, someone else had left it here, on this dead screen, in this forgotten place. It meant someone else knew. Someone else was fighting. And they had left this for an investigator, for you, to find. You were not alone in this fight. The pain in your leg was still there, but it no longer consumed you. It became a dull throb, a reminder of the cost, but also of the urgency. You could not stop now, not when the threads were finally beginning to weave together, not when the ghosts of the past were reaching out, begging for recognition. You took a deep, shuddering breath, the sterile air filling your lungs, sharp and invigorating. You had hit rock bottom, yes, but from the depths, a new resolve had forged itself. The personal cost no longer mattered, only the truth. Somewhere within this vast dead network lay the next piece, and you, Dean Archer, were going to find it. The swivel chair, a hollow drum in the echoing expanse, ricocheted from your kick, its plastic wheels shrieking a brief protest. But the sound was swallowed quickly by the vast, indifferent silence. What you'd found there, etched into the dusty underside of a forgotten maintenance panel, was a sequence of numbers, a digital breadcrumb leading not to a dead end, but to the very heart of the labyrinth. Your breath, a ragged testament to the climb through disused shafts and ventilation ducts, feathered against the cold steel of a service hatch. Above, the city hummed, a deceptive lullaby. Below, the truth waited, hidden behind layers of corporate sheen and digital obfuscation. You picked the lock with the practiced ease of a phantom, the tumblers clicking in soft surrender. The hatch gave way, revealing a narrow corridor, hushed and sterile, smelling faintly of ozone and expensive cleaning agents. This was it, the high temple of the city's financial pulse. Each step you took on the polished floor was a deliberate act of defiance, a challenge to the silent sentinels of wealth and power. Your target, the inner sanctum, the nerve center where fortunes were made and, perhaps, lives unmade. The sequence from the tunnel was a key, a back door into a system designed to be impenetrable. You found the double doors, heavy and unyielding, marked with a discreet, unlit plaque. The air inside was heavy, stale with the ghost of frantic energy, a lingering scent of ambition and stale coffee. Their glassy surfaces reflected the faint, ambient light from the city outside, creating an eerie, distorted mosaic of the night. Each workstation was a tombstone to a day's worth of transactions, a silent witness to the ebb and flow of capital. The terminal flickered to life, its boot-up sequence a familiar, comforting hum. You typed the numerical sequence, a string of digits that felt heavy with intent. The screen pulsed, then granted access. A hidden partition, a vault within the vault, unfolded before your eyes. Not financial records, not trading data, but something far more insidious. Encrypted files labeled with dates, locations, and cryptic aliases. You opened the oldest one first. Payments, instructions, timelines. They were all there, meticulously documented. They were threads in a single, vast, and intricate tapestry of control. Then, a specific file caught your eye. Project Chimera, Phase 3 report. You clicked it, and the screen filled with a detailed dossier. It outlined a long-term strategy, a systematic elimination of obstacles, a consolidation of power. It spoke of leveraging influence, silencing dissent, and manipulating the flow of information. But the final piece, the ultimate architect, remained elusive. Until you scrolled further down, past the names of enforcers and facilitators, past the details of payoffs and threats. There, at the bottom of a meticulously crafted organizational chart, was a single, undeniable designation. The chairman, oversight and final authority. And beneath it, not a role. It was the name of the very individual who had championed the Missing Persons initiative that had initially brought you into this twisted game. You had found your monster, and it wore a perfectly tailored suit. The air, a still, cool breath against your skin, tasted of dust and the faint electrical ghost of 1,000 frantic moments. Each workstation, a dark tombstone, stretched into the cavernous space, reflecting the dim emergency lighting in fractured, distorted echoes. The quiet hum of distant ventilation was the only pulse in this mausoleum of ambition. A stark contrast to the service tunnel's raw, metallic tang that still clung to your clothes. Your footsteps, deliberate and measured, broke the profound hush. Each click of your worn shoes amplified, an announcement in the vast emptiness. At the far end, bathed in the sickly green glow of a single operational monitor displaying only a company logo, stood the executive. Their silhouette was sharp, unyielding, framed by the dormant terminals like a king on a throne of fallen empires. Their hands were clasped behind their back, a posture of calm authority, utterly incongruous with the desolate scene. Dean, the executive's voice, smooth as polished granite, cut through the quiet. It carried no surprise, only a weary expectation. I knew you would come, like a fly drawn to the only light left burning. You stepped further into the heart of the floor, the dead screens now reflecting your own hardened gaze, a mosaic of grim resolve. You left enough breadcrumbs, didn't you? The service tunnel, the coded messages, the disappearance of the missing person. It was an invitation, wasn't it? A challenge, perhaps, to see if the old dog still had his scent. And you, Dean, you haven't disappointed. You always were tenacious. Tenacity for truth, not for games, you countered, your voice low, steady, a counterpoint to the vastness. You thought you'd buried it all, didn't you? A neat little package, sealed with power and influence. You gestured vaguely around the desolate floor. This place, a monument to your forgotten ambition. A perfect stage for your final act. The executive's smile faltered, replaced by a subtle tightening around their eyes. My ambition is far from forgotten, Dean. It is merely evolving. This floor is a symbol of transition, not abandonment. And the missing person? A regrettable inconvenience. Nothing more. An inconvenience that led me to the abandoned factory, to the warehouse on the docks, to the underground bunker where you kept the truth locked away. You stated, each location a hammer blow. An inconvenience that spoke volumes, even in its absence. The missing person knew too much, didn't they? This isn't just about a missing person, is it? It's about a pattern. Their eyes narrowed, tracking the chip. What is that? A trinket? A figment of your rekindled paranoia? It's a voice recording, you explained, your gaze unwavering. From the service tunnel, a conversation between you and your security chief, detailing the final moments of the missing person's knowledge, their desperate attempt to expose you, and more. It contains encrypted files, a digital ledger, outlining the full scope of your operation, the very fabric of your empire, laid bare. A sharp intake of breath, barely audible, escaped the executive. Their hands clenched, the knuckles stark white against their tailored suit. You have nothing, only the ramblings of a disgraced detective, desperate for a redemption arc. Oh, I have more than ramblings, you affirmed, a grim satisfaction settling in your chest. I have proof, and I've ensured it's not just for my eyes. The moment I walked onto this floor, the signal was sent. A live feed, a broadcast to a few carefully selected recipients. The authorities, a trusted journalist. They're watching, listening to every word. This isn't a private conversation, executive. This is your public confession. The executive's face, once a mask of controlled power, twisted into something venomous. You fool. Do you truly believe a few lines of code and a desperate gambit will undo years of careful planning? My influence runs deeper than you can imagine. This will be buried. You will be buried. Perhaps, you conceded, a dangerous calm in your voice. But not before the truth sees the light. Not before the families of the missing finally have answers. This isn't just about bringing you down, executive. This is about finally finding justice for all of them. For the girl in the warehouse, the worker on the docks, the student who disappeared on their way home. For the failures I carry, the ones I couldn't solve before. The executive lunged, a sudden desperate movement, not towards you, but towards a control panel hidden beneath a workstation, fingers scrambling for a switch. Your instincts, honed by years of street-level confrontations, flared. You moved faster, a blur of motion across the polished floor, intercepting their path. Your hand clamped down on their wrist, twisting. The data chip, still in your other hand, remained secure. It's over, you stated, your voice devoid of triumph, only a heavy finality. The game had ended. And for the first time in a long time, the weight on your shoulders felt a little lighter, even as the true battle for justice had only just begun. The silence, once a shroud, was now a witness. The wail of the siren, a banshee's cry in the concrete canyon, tore through the vast emptiness of the midnight trading floor with dead screens. It swelled, a palpable force, vibrating through the chilled air, a promise of impending judgment. The executive's wide eyes, fixed on yours, held a flicker of something ancient and primal. Not fear, but a dawning, terrible understanding of finality. The game, indeed, had ended. You felt the tremor of the building, or perhaps it was your own pulse, finally calming after days of relentless pursuit. Your hand, steady and firm, pressed against the executive's shoulder, a silent anchor. No need for force, no need for theatrics. The sound outside was enough. It was the sound of the world reasserting its order, even if that order was often a fragile, corrupted thing. Footsteps, heavy and urgent, echoed from the stairwell. The clang of the fire escape door, then voices, sharp and authoritative, cutting through the siren's dying lament. The first uniformed officer, a young woman with a face etched with a mixture of apprehension and resolve, burst onto the floor, weapon raised, her gaze sweeping the silent terminals, the ghostly glow of the dead screens. His eyes found you, then the executive, then the scattered papers on the polished floor. The ledger, the encrypted files, the irrefutable proof. Dean Archer, you stated, your voice calm, surprisingly level. Private investigator. I have him, and the evidence. The officer's eyes widened slightly, recognizing your name, perhaps from the old, tarnished headlines. She lowered her weapon, replaced it with a radio, and spoke in clipped, professional tones. Soon, the room was a controlled chaos of flashing lights and official presence. Detectives, plainclothes figures you vaguely remembered from a lifetime ago, moved with practiced efficiency. They secured the executive, who offered no resistance, his posture now slumped, defeated. A familiar face emerged from the throng. The captain, a man whose weary eyes had seen too much. He approached you, his gaze scrutinizing. "Archer," he grunted, a knot of old resentment and grudging respect in his tone. "You always did have a knack for stirring the pot." You met his gaze, unflinching. Someone had to. This pot was boiling over. He nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. The missing person? But I found why they went missing, and who made them disappear. You gestured to the pile of documents, now carefully bagged by a forensic technician. "It goes deep, Captain. Deeper than anyone wanted to admit. Not just one case. A network. The missing person was just the first thread pulled in a tapestry woven with blood and ambition." He sighed, the weight of the city seemingly settling on his shoulders. "We'll follow every lead, every single one. This time, there's no sweeping it under the rug." He paused, looking around the cavernous midnight trading floor with dead screens, the silent witnesses to decades of hidden machinations. "You did good, Archer." The bitter taste of injustice had been your constant companion. It wasn't absolution, not entirely, but it was a step towards it. A step towards reclaiming a piece of yourself you thought was irrevocably lost. You watched as the executive was led away, his face a mask of resignation. The sounds were now muted, the rustle of evidence bags, the low murmur of professional voices. The city outside, oblivious to the seismic shift that had just occurred within one of its gleaming towers, continued its ceaseless hum. Later, much later, as the first gray fingers of dawn stretched across the bruised sky, you stood alone on the street below. The yellow tape was up, the media vans were beginning to gather, their satellite dishes like hungry eyes. You took a deep breath, the cold air filling your lungs, chasing away the staleness of the night. The missing person was gone, a tragic casualty in a war against unseen forces. But their disappearance had ignited a fire, exposing a rot that had festered for too long. Justice, a slow and often brutal beast, had begun to stir. The executive was just one head of the Hydra you knew. The conspiracy ran through boardrooms and back alleys, touching every facet of the city's life. This wasn't the end. It was merely the beginning of an arduous, protracted fight. But for you, something had shifted. The cynicism, a protective shell you had cultivated for years, cracked, allowing a sliver of light to penetrate. You had done the right thing, not for glory, not for redemption, but because it needed to be done. The ghost of your past, the failure that had haunted your every step, now seemed a little less menacing, a little more distant. The path ahead was unclear. The city, your city, was still wounded, but a surgeon's knife had finally begun its work. You were a part of that, a small, crucial incision. As the sun crested the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fiery orange and soft rose, you felt a nascent hope, a quiet resolve. The scars remained, but the healing had finally begun. You were still Dean, a private investigator, but you were no longer just a disgraced one. The lingering questions about the city's future and your own hung in the crisp morning air, but for the first time in a long time, you felt ready to face them.